Who the fuck did I marry? Who the fuck did I marry?
In July of 2021, Reesa found one of Legion's cousins and was able to talk to her on the phone. She, in turn, gave her the phone number to his older brother. Now, she's calling him Chris. That's not his real name. When she talked to the older brother says that Legion is a liar. And she told him about the 30 and 40-minute conversations that she heard him talking to, or believed that he was talking to him, all those mornings. And his brother says that's a lie. He said he hadn't talked to his brother since 2015, and that if he ever saw his brother again, he was gonna whoop his ass. He said, quote, "He was not talking to me." Chris, the brother, went on to say that Legion has a twin brother that's 20 minutes older than him. He says that twin brother is vice president of his company. The twin brother is married, and he has a 5-bedroom house and drives a luxury car. That twin brother lives in Nashville. The brother says that Legion only calls his twin brother when he needs money. And he asked her, "Have you ever met any of our family? How did you get duped?" And she said she'd met the aunt. He says, "That's not our aunt. That was our mom's best friend, and she can't be trusted." Then she asked him about the 2 half-brothers. He says they don't have any half-brothers. Then she asked about the 2 sisters, and he says we don't have any sisters. She said, "What about Shantae?" He had no idea who Shantae was, but the name Kim was a cousin that they hadn't spoken to in many years. The brother said the best thing for her to do would be to get a divorce, be glad she didn't have any children by Legion, and to move on. But before they ended the conversation, she asked him about 2 other relatives. She asked him about the uncle who had died during COVID. He said that uncle has been dead. That uncle didn't just die from COVID. He'd been dead for years. And she said that she told him about a relative that they had, like a cousin named Junebug, that oftentimes Legion would be on the phone talking to. He said Junebug had been dead. Reesa was able to get some answers about Legion's parents. So remember, he said that his father was a cop and his mother was a school teacher. In fact, he said his father had retired as a Philly cop. And once he did, they moved to Augusta, Georgia, where they opened up a church when he was in high school. Chris said that was a lie, that their dad didn't even go to church. He was furthest thing from being a man of God, that he was a truck driver who had once been a correctional officer, and that he did long-haul truck driving. The mother had never been a teacher. She had once been a substitute teacher. Now, in addition to this, she says that she told him, mentioned his daughter, and that Legion said that Chris had a daughter named Egypt, and that they had gone to go get her a birthday present, some shoes, and mailed them off to her. He says he has a daughter, but they didn't live in the city that the shoes were sent to, and that his daughter's name is not Egypt. Move on to the work phone. Well, this work phone that Legion supposedly had, that his assistant David was answering, it turns out that it was not a work phone. It was a prepaid phone that Legion had. He left it in that briefcase where he left some other documents. So she went through it. She wanted to know how he was paying her bills, and she also wanted to know how it was that he had all that money in his checking account. But when she went through the deleted folders on his phone, she found that all of those bank statements and even the company car and the homes that he was supposed to have had in the past, that they were all Google images. Shortly after, his aunt from Augusta, who turns out to be the mom's best friend, called and asked her what happened, because she said Legion was trying to come and live with her, and she said she told her about all of the lies. And the aunt said, "Well, where's the baby?" And Reesa said, "What baby?" And the aunt said that Legion told her that in January they had a baby boy, and that he was leaving Reesa and taking the baby with him. She was confused because she'd asked for several times to get pictures of the baby, to see the baby, to meet Reesa, and he would always have some sort of an excuse. The aunt said that she was concerned about having to go to court in regards to the divorce, and so she wasn't sure that she was going to have Legion to come and live with her. Reesa said she told him that, you know what, this is an amicable divorce. At this point, Legion is living in his car, but he calls up Reesa and he's trying to get some money from her because he says he needs just a little bit of money to tide him over until he can get on his feet. So she asked him a few questions. She asked him about his twin. He said he didn't want to talk about that. She asked him about being fired from the condiment company. He says that he got fired because he was helping a truck driver he shouldn't have helped. She wanted to know how he was able to pay the bills, and apparently he was making enough money at the condiment company to pay her bills. And she asked him, why did he tell his aunt that the baby lived? And he said that the aunt was just old and feeble and that she didn't know what she was talking about and that he never said that. She also asked him about his weekend stays at the jail. And he says he didn't even know what a weekend jail stay was. So she broke down and she asked him, why did you marry me? And he said that he knew that he had to marry her because she wasn't the type of woman that would be his girlfriend for more than a year. So Reesa did a criminal background check on him, and she found out that he had been arrested for trespassing, suspended license and registration, but the main thing is that he was a convicted felon for impersonating a police officer. He'd used his dad's prison guard badge that had the same last name to go to an apartment complex in Georgia to impersonate an officer. He said he was looking for drugs. He tried to pat someone down. And then he went to a woman's apartment and tried to get into her apartment saying that he was a police officer. But this woman worked at the police department or knew some people that worked at the police department. And so she was able to call them and they came and arrested him, took him to jail, and he was convicted. He has a felony. So that means that there's no way he had a passport, could get a passport. At the end of July, beginning of August, Legion disappeared for 2 weeks. Reesa was very worried about him, and she also needed to get in contact with him so they could finalize that divorce that 30 days was coming up. When she hadn't heard from him and knew that he was living in his car, she started calling around to everyone that he had claimed to be related to, who claimed to be friends. Everybody that she called said they didn't want to have anything to do with him. One said that he owed them money, and the other said, don't ever call me again to ask anything about him. Cousins, like, why are you calling me? No one knew where he was, and no one cared. Reesa found out that he had checked himself into a behavioral clinic because he wanted to be off the streets for 2 weeks so that he could get some rest, because in Georgia it was really hot between July and August. After Legion got out of the behavioral clinic, he started calling Reesa just over and over and over again on Facebook Messenger. She's like 30 times in like just a few minutes, just calling and calling, because someone had told him that because they were not divorced, that he could come back to the home and live there. Now, her lease was up in August and she was getting ready to move. She only had about 2 weeks before she needed to pack up and get out of there, and she didn't want Legion to come, but law enforcement said that by law he could come back to the house. They gave her some choices, that either she could stay in there with him or she could leave and they would film the house so that in case he destroyed the house in those 2 weeks that she could sue him, but she knew he didn't have anything. Then a break came. One of the officers that Reesa had reached out to noticed that Legion had an arrest warrant. In mid-August, Reesa received a call from Legion saying that he was on his way to her home. In fact, he was parked in her driveway. He had backed up into the driveway, blocking her garage. When she got home, she saw that he was there. She called 911. Four police cars showed up. They told him to get out of the car, that he had a warrant for his arrest for violation of probation. When he stepped out the car, she was surprised. He was wearing the same dirty clothes that he had been wearing months before, and he was no longer a 3XL. He was actually about a large or a medium, she said. He was really small for what he had been before. She said that he asked to speak to her. And when she did go over to go speak to him, he said that he had come there because he was trying to get, I guess, that briefcase that had that private information in there. And also he wanted a TV that he had given her. And she went off on him, said, how he had embarrassed her. And then that she never wanted to see him again. So the police took him away and took him to jail. She went to the mail, and there it was, the divorce decree. It was granted. She was no longer married to him. But his car was still in her driveway. So she called the repo man because the car was not paid for, Legion's car. The repo man came and got it. Shortly after this, Reesa moved. And then she didn't hear from him again until December of 2021 when he called her job trying to find her. And what he said is that he was trying to get back that briefcase that had his stuff, and there were just some things that he'd left. And she let him know that she didn't have any of his belongings, and that if he ever called her again, that she would get a restraining order filed against him. As she closed out, she said one of the things is that she no longer trusts people the way that she did. And this is Who the F Did I Marry? The Reader's Digest version, the Cliff Note version of it. I hope that you enjoyed it. As a journalist, I tried to put in all the key points so that if you are in a discussion about this going into spring break and you don't want to spend 8, 10, 12 hours listening to Who the Fuck Did I Marry, you'll be able to have an informed discussion with people based upon this reporter's takeaway from Who the Fuck Did I Marry.